Hey there guys, my name is Miranda Hagerman, and for my research paper I chose to do the reading comprehension strategy option. And for the actual reading comprehension strategy I decided to do my paper on anticipation guides. Now the reason why I chose anticipation guides to do my paper on is because when we actually did them in class, I want to say a few weeks ago or something like that, and I really thought it was an amazing idea. I loved making them. I thought it was really creative and awesome, and I thought that it could be tailored to whatever type of student you are teaching, whatever subject you're teaching, whether it be a novel, lit class. You could do an anticipation guide on science class. You can do it on social studies when you're dealing with history, just basically on any type of reading material that you're going to be using. So first of all, the anticipation guide was made by Harold Herbert in 1978. He designed it. The reading strategy itself is now very well known. It's very well known among educators and teachers, and it's also to be known to be a very well liked strategy by most students. The guide actually uses statements created by the teacher, and it's designed to help children utilize their prior knowledge, and they actually make predictions about what the text is going to be. So according to the Reading Rockets website, a website that's very known for teaching children, helping them learn how to read and read better, and anticipation guide strategy is used before reading to activate students' prior knowledge and build curiosity about a new topic. And before reading, students listen to or read several statements about a key concepts presented in the text, whatever that text may be. They're often structured as a series of statements in which students can choose to agree or disagree. And when we did our anticipation guides in class, that's what we did. We chose a book and we made a list of questions or statements, and we put an agree or disagree column. So the students would look at the statements that the teacher made, and then in the next column they would put agree or disagree. So they kind of flip through the book. They don't read it yet. They look at what the statement says, and then they make a prediction based on their prior knowledge, whether they agree or disagree with the text. And this just kind of encourages critical thinking. It has many uses and can be very useful in the classroom. Comprehension, word meaning, predictions, and prior knowledge are all examples of what is encouraged and when using this strategy. Like I said, when you're creating an anticipation guide, the teacher creates a list of statements from which the students will respond. When you're utilizing the anticipation guide, when you're in literature class, it would most likely be for reading a book. The questions or statements would derive from the story, book, whatever, and the students would react to those questions. The creator of the guide would have to be very comfortable and very familiar with the text. They would have had to have read the text and understand it to be able to create a guide for the students to be able to react to. Now, like I said before, anticipation guides are adaptable, and they are actually can be utilized and tailored to the specific student. They could be tailored to the subject matter. So these adaptations, they include, according to an article that I actually used in my paper, Cozen et al., the adaptations include input, which is what you put into the anticipation guide. The size, you can actually choose how many questions or how long the questions are. level of support, which means how much you're going to help the student through the anticipation guide, difficulty level, and modified goals, which is kind of self-explanatory. How hard you want the anticipation guide to be, how much you want the children to think. Of course, if it's going to be lower grade level students, then you're going to do simpler questions, shorter questions, and vice versa with older kids. If you're going to be teaching a group of older children, then you want the questions to be more complex, longer questions where they have to think a little bit more. And then time, which is how long you give the students to do the anticipation guide, how long you give the students to answer the questions or actually read the material that the anticipation guide is based on. Now, there was actually a research study conducted on a group of students in September of 2017, I believe, on anticipation guides and students' reading comprehension, and it was found that actually students showed significant results. The results of this study concluded that students had a better reading comprehension of actual procedure text than those who were taught by using another method of reading comprehension, which is small group discussion. So that was interesting. And furthermore, we were talking about adaptation. You can also adapt the anticipation guides to be cross-curricular, which means to do other subjects, not just literature. So with literature, you would do things like novels, but in other subjects such as history, math, social studies, it could be extremely beneficial to utilize these guides as well. The guides could be used, for example, on the Reading Rockets website that I used for one of my sources. It said that they have all kinds of different templates of anticipation guides. For example, for science, there was one, I believe, help students understand about fungi, or help students understand about dinosaurs. And then also on the website, there was a template in social studies, and it says help students organize their reading about topics such as the Panama Canal. So you can use these in any subject. They're very useful, and they're, like I said, they're highly adaptable. Now these can be done in groups or pairs. It can be tailored, like I said, for the different types of students. So students with disabilities, you could tailor it to the students doing groups, the students having a higher level of support from the teacher, and the questions would just have to be tailored by the teacher at that point. So, anticipation guides can be very useful for any student, but especially it could be useful for students that have trouble reading. Now, I chose the two extremely different books for my examples for the anticipation guide. Mortal Instruments, City of Bones is my favorite book. I use that for the favorite book. It has a 3rd through 5th grade reading level and a 9th through 12th grade interest level. It would most likely be used as a middle school reading assignment for this particular book. You could use statements. When you're creating the anticipation guide, you could use statements like, look at the cover of the book, there is a picture of an island in Hawaii. And then the student beside it would, of course, agree or disagree about going and looking at the cover of the book. Vampires can be out in the daylight because the book has it's fantasy, it has vampires and stuff like that. Vampires can be out in the daylight. They're going to be thinking, what do I know about vampires? Vampires, can they be out in the daylight? No. Okay. Disagree. So that's kind of activating their critical thinking skills. Another book that I chose was Hurricane Katrina, written by Gail Tuckman. It's a nonfiction book about, of course, Hurricane Katrina when that hit. It has a 2nd grade reading level and a 1st through 2nd grade interest level. It would be used for a 2nd grade class, so it's a little bit simpler. And you could be using this book when you're talking about You could use it as a nonfiction book when you're teaching nonfiction, but it also could be used as a science book when you're talking about hurricanes or natural disasters. It could also be a history book of natural disasters in U.S. history. And for this one, you could use something like, look at the cover of this book. This book will be about a happy family that goes on summer vacation. And obviously they would look at the cover of the book, see what's on the cover, and that's not what the book's about. Or a Category 5 hurricane is the worst hurricane there is. And anyone that knows anything about hurricanes, or they could think about it, and they would agree or disagree, and of course that's true. So it just kind of, as they read, they would find out if their predictions were correct. And then there's also an option you can put when you're creating the guide, they would have to mark whether or not they were correct, where they found the information, and other notes or reflections based on how hard you want the anticipation guide to be. And I chose a bunch of other books as well, because we had to pick 10. So in conclusion, these guides can be tailored to be as general or specific as needed, and they can be used with any types of students. They can be as lengthy as short as needed. They can be used in different grade levels, and they're beneficial for everyone. It could be appropriate, as stated before, for any grade level. It's so flexible, and it's a very beneficial. It gets readers interested. It's a fun activity. Most students, like I said before, like this activity. And I know when we were doing it in class, I really enjoyed making it, as well as filling it out after I made it too. So that's all I have. And I've already watched some of the other presentations, and you guys are doing amazing, and I can't wait to watch more. Thank you so much.